He thought he knew his wife. He thought he had the perfect family. He was wrong. Daniel worked double shifts at the factory every single week. Not because he loved it, because his mother was sick and hospital bills don't pay themselves. His mother, Ruth, had been dealing with a serious heart condition for almost 2 years. She couldn't walk without help. She couldn't cook. She couldn't even get out of bed some mornings. So Daniel did what any son would do. He brought her home. He set up a room for her, hired part-time nurses, and trusted his wife, Sandra, to look after her when he wasn't around. Sandra was always smiling when Daniel came home. Dinner was on the table. The house was clean. She would ask about his day, laugh at his jokes, and every night before bed, she'd say, "Your mom was fine today. She ate well. She rested." Daniel believed every word. Why wouldn't he? She was his wife. But here's what Daniel didn't know. His mother was not fine. He thought he knew his wife. He thought he had the perfect family. He was wrong. Daniel worked double shifts at the factory every single week. Not because he loved it, because his mother was sick and hospital bills don't pay themselves. His mother, Ruth, had been dealing with a serious heart condition for almost 2 years. She couldn't walk without help. She couldn't cook. She couldn't even get out of bed some mornings. So Daniel did what any son would do. He brought her home. He set up a room for her, hired part-time nurses, and trusted his wife, Sandra, to look after her when he wasn't around. Sandra was always smiling when Daniel came home. Dinner was on the table. The house was clean. She would ask about his day, laugh at his jokes, and every night before bed, she'd say, "Your mom was fine today. She ate well. She rested." Daniel believed every word. Why wouldn't he? She was his wife. But here's what Daniel didn't know. His mother was not fine. Ruth had started losing weight. Her hands trembled more than usual. She looked tired, not the normal tired of an old woman, but the tired of someone who had given up. Every time Daniel visited her room, she would hold his hand a little too long. Like she was scared. Like she was trying to tell him something without saying the words. Daniel noticed. But Sandra always had an explanation. She didn't sleep well last night. She refused to eat again. You know how she is. The doctor said this is normal for her condition. Daniel trusted his wife. So he kept working. He kept paying the bills. He kept telling himself everything was okay. Then one Thursday, the factory shut down early. A pipe burst in the main hall and everyone was sent home by noon. Daniel texted Sandra to tell her he was coming back. No reply. He figured she was busy. He drove home, parked the car, and walked inside. The house was quiet. He called Sandra's name. No answer. He walked to his mother's room and opened the door. What he saw stopped him cold. His mother was lying in bed, pale and shaking. The window was wide open. It was the middle of winter. There was no blanket on her. Her food tray from the morning was sitting on the table, untouched and cold, and Sandra was nowhere in the room. Daniel rushed to his mother, closed the window, and covered her with a blanket. Ruth grabbed his arm with both hands and started crying. Not a soft cry. The kind of crying that comes from deep pain. The kind you hold inside for a very long time before it finally breaks out. "She leaves me like this," Ruth whispered. "Every day you go to work, she leaves me like this." Daniel's chest felt like it had caved in. He asked his mother to tell him everything. And slowly, through tears and broken sentences, Ruth did. Sandra had been leaving her alone for hours every day. Not checking if she needed water. Not giving her the medication on time. Sometimes turning off the heater in her room. Once Ruth had fallen trying to reach her phone and lay on the floor for almost 40 minutes before Sandra came back. And when Ruth asked for help, Sandra would look at her and say, "You're fine. Stop being dramatic." She wasn't being dramatic. She was a sick woman being ignored by the one person who was supposed to care for her. Daniel sat with his mother for a long time. He held her hand. He didn't say much, but inside something had shifted permanently. When Sandra came home that evening, she had been out shopping. She walked in with bags and a big smile, completely unaware that everything had changed. She started telling Daniel about a sale she found. He let her finish. Then he looked at her and said, "Tell me what really happens in this house when I'm at work." Sandra's smile didn't disappear all at once. It faded slowly, like air going out of a balloon. She tried to explain. She said Ruth was difficult. She said Ruth complained too much. She said she needed space, that caring for a sick person every day was exhausting, that no one understood what she was going through. And maybe in some small way, some of that was true. Caregiving is hard. Burnout is real, but there is a very big difference between struggling and neglecting. There is a very big difference between being tired and leaving. A sick woman alone in a cold room with no food and no medicine. Daniel had crossed that line in his mind already. There was no going back. He called Ruth's doctor the next morning and asked him to come check on her. The doctor found that she was dehydrated. Her blood pressure was dangerously high, and she had bruising on her hip from the fall that had never been treated. The doctor said that if this had continued for another few weeks, Ruth could have had a second heart attack. A second heart attack? Daniel moved his mother out of the house and into a proper care facility that same week. He paid for round-the-clock nursing. He visited her every single evening after work. Within a month, she started eating again. Her hands stopped trembling as much. She started smiling again, and that slow, warm smile Daniel remembered from when he was a child. As for Sandra, Daniel did not make the decision quickly. He sat with it. He thought about the years they had spent together. He thought about whether it could be fixed, whether counseling could help, whether he had missed warning signs earlier. Some nights he stayed up until 3 in the morning just staring at the ceiling, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw his mother on that cold bed, alone, shaking, waiting for someone to come. And he knew. The marriage ended. Not with shouting or throwing things. It ended quietly, with papers on a table and 2 people who had nothing left to say to each other. People who heard the story always asked the same question. How did he not see it sooner? And that's a fair question. But the truth is, it's very easy to miss what you don't want to find. Daniel trusted Sandra because he needed to trust her. He was carrying so much already, the work, the money, the fear of losing his mother, that believing everything was okay at home was the only thing keeping him together. Sometimes we don't ask the hard questions because we're scared of the hard answers. But here's what this story teaches, and it's important. When someone you love keeps giving you a feeling, a quiet, uncomfortable feeling that something is wrong, don't wait for proof. Go check, go look. Go ask the person who cannot speak up for themselves, because sometimes the only person who can protect them is you. Ruth is doing well now. Daniel calls her every morning before work. She laughs more. She eats more. She tells the nurses at the care facility stories about Daniel as a little boy. And Daniel? He says losing his marriage was one of the hardest things he ever went through. But watching his mother smile again, that made it worth it.